After a 2-week standoff between protesters and construction crews building a border wall made of shipping containers, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit Wednesday against Arizona, accusing it of trespassing on federal land. The lawsuit asks for immediate injunctive relief prohibiting the state from continuing work on the wall, which federal officials say is being built on federal land without the required permits or authority. Arizona has unlawfully and without authority failed to remove the shipping containers from lands owned by the United States or over which the United States holds easements, thereby damaging the United States, the complaint reads. The lawsuit follows months of tension between outgoing Gov. Doug Ducey's office and federal agencies, including the U.S. Forest Service and the Department of the Interior, both of which oversee public land on which the barrier is being built. In August, Ducey issued an executive order directing the Arizona Department of Emergency and Military Affairs to fill gaps in the existing border wall in Yuma County using shipping containers. The federal government has said the land is public and called the project unlawful. In October, Ducey sued federal officials who head agencies overseeing public land, including the Forest Service and the Agriculture Department. The federal government asked that the lawsuit be dismissed. The project has since expanded to Cochise County, where local residents and environmentalists have withstood snow and freezing temperatures to hold protests. On Tuesday, Ducey's office sent a letter to the Justice Department, saying Arizona stands ready to cooperate with the federal government on construction of a border wall and always has been. The letter indicated work on the project has been paused. From our perspective, the containers were always intended to be a temporary solution to an ongoing problem, and that's the problem of an unsecure border, said CJ Karamarjan, Ducey's spokesman. This should be the beginning of the end of Doug Ducey's lawless assault on protected national forest lands and endangered wildlife, Russ McSpadden, Southwest conservation advocate at the Center for Biological Diversity, said in an emailed statement. Ducey is spending his last days in office wasting millions of taxpayer dollars dumping toxic railcars on some of the most beautiful, biodiverse lands in Arizona. We're hopeful a judge will quickly stop this heartless, reckless PR stunt in its tracks. Also Wednesday, the Center for Biological Diversity filed a notice of intent to sue Ducey's office over the wall because of ecological concerns. The center says the wall violated the Clean Water Act in the Coronado National Forest, near where its construction is taking place. Dr. Robin Silver with the Center for Biological Diversity said the intent to sue is necessary because the federal complaint against Ducey's office does not go far enough in asking for the construction to immediately stop. Important waterways are being damaged or altered by the placement of shipping containers on land that serves as important habitats and crossings, including for endangered species, he said. We don't trust the feds, he said. Under the Clean Water Act, they have created a dam with those shipping containers and it just looks like a junkyard now. Demonstrators have said they will not leave their protest site until the containers are removed, even if it means camping in tents in below freezing temperatures through the upcoming holidays.
House passes stopgap bill to avert shutdown at end of the week. The House voted Wednesday evening to pass a stopgap bill to avert a government shutdown at the end of this week, with funding currently set to expire on Friday at midnight. The bill must now go to the Senate to be approved before it can go to President Joe Biden to be signed into law. The Senate could vote as soon as Thursday. In a sign of progress, top negotiators announced Tuesday evening that an agreement had been reached for a framework that puts lawmakers on track to complete a sweeping full-year government funding package. Senate Appropriations Committee Chairman Patrick Leahy said in a statement that he and ranking Republican member Richard Shelby and House Appropriations Committee Chairwoman Rosa DeLauro reached a bipartisan, bicameral framework that should allow us to finish an omnibus appropriations bill that can pass the House and Senate and be signed into law by the President. So far, however, negotiators have not provided many specifics about the agreement. On Wednesday, Shelby said the top line is about $1.7 trillion. Shelby said the exact allocations to the different government agencies are still being negotiated. A bipartisan agreement for a full-year government funding deal has proven challenging to secure amid disagreement between the two parties over how much money should be spent on non-defense, domestic priorities. Democrats counter by saying those measures were necessary to help the country recover from the devastating impact of the pandemic as well as to tackle other critical priorities. Democrats say that money to respond to COVID, healthcare and climate should not mean there should be less money next year for government operations and non-defense, domestic spending. The announcement on Tuesday evening that a framework deal had been reached for a broader spending bill represented a breakthrough in negotiations. But there is still more work to be done now for lawmakers to finalize the fine print and the specifics of what the sprawling legislation will include. This story and headline have been updated with additional developments.
Russia-Ukraine war at a glance. What we know on day 295 of the invasion. Russia has shut down any proposals for a Christmas ceasefire in Ukraine, saying the topic is not on the agenda, according to the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov. Ukraine's President, Volodymyr Zelensky, earlier this week called on G7 leaders to back a peace solution that would start with Russia withdrawing troops from Ukraine, beginning this Christmas. There is no calm on the front line, he added in an evening video address. The Ukrainian military said it shot down 13 Iranian-made drones over Kyiv and the surrounding region on Wednesday in Russia's first major drone attack on the capital in weeks. The strikes damaged 5 buildings and authorities described the assault as a continuation of Russia's energy terror against the country. There were no victims, the spokesperson for Kyiv's rescue services, Svitlana Vodolaga, told Ukraine's Suspilne News. Russian drone strikes on Kyiv and the region around the Ukrainian capital on Wednesday did not damage any energy facilities, the national power grid operator Ukrenergo said. Thanks to the brilliant work of the air defense forces, the energy infrastructure facilities were not damaged. All 13 drones were shot down, Ukrenergo said on Telegram. The regional administration building in the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson was also hit by multiple Russian rockets, according to a senior Ukrainian official. Kyrylo Tymoshenko, the deputy head of Ukraine's presidential office, said 2 floors of the building on the central square of the recently liberated city had been damaged, but that no one was reported hurt. An unconfirmed video circulating on social media showed a huge plume of smoke pouring up from the top of the administration building. The U.S. is expected to decide whether to supply Ukraine with its advanced Patriot air defense system. U.S. officials told CNN that the missiles could be delivered in a matter of days after the repeated Russian barrages against Ukrainian cities. The Patriot would be the most advanced surface-to-air missile system the West has provided to Ukraine. The Washington Post also reported that the U.S. is planning to send electronic equipment that converts unguided aerial munitions into smart bombs, allowing a high degree of accurate targeting, citing U.S. officials familiar with the matter. Canada has said it will revoke a sanctions waiver that allowed turbines for Nord Stream 1, Russia's biggest gas pipeline to Europe, to be repaired in Montreal and returned to Germany. The pipeline under the Baltic Sea was shut down for repairs on the 31st of August. European governments suspect the ruptures of the pipeline and another called Nord Stream 2 were caused by sabotage. Putin has been forced to show that his intention was never to return Nord Stream 1 to full operation, and that the pipeline itself has been rendered inoperable, the Foreign Minister, Melanie Joly, said on Wednesday. The war in Ukraine will continue for some time going forward, the White House National Security spokesperson, John Kirby, predicts. Kirby said the scale of the ongoing violence tempered hopes for an imminent end to hostilities. Just given what we're seeing in the air and on the ground in Ukraine, it's difficult to conclude that this war will be over by year's end, Kirby said. So there is active fighting going on right now. We would expect that will continue for some time going forward. Russia faces a critical shortage of artillery shells, and Moscow's ability to conduct ground operations in Ukraine is rapidly diminishing. As a result, Britain's Armed Forces chief has said. Admiral Sir Tony Radakin, the Chief of Defence Staff, told an audience at the Royal United Services Institute think tank on Wednesday that the Kremlin had only planned for a short period to subjugate Ukraine, and has instead found itself embroiled in a conflict lasting nearly 10 months. Russia faces a critical shortage of artillery munitions. This means that their ability to conduct successful offensive ground operations is rapidly diminishing, the military chief said. A U.S. national who was arrested by pro-Russian separatists in Ukraine in the summer has now been released as part of a prisoner exchange with Ukraine, the head of Ukraine's presidential administration, Andriy Yermak, said. Swety Murakezi, 35, was released by Russia along with 64 Ukrainian soldiers and the bodies of 4 fallen soldiers, Yermak said. Murakezi told The Guardian earlier this month that he felt trapped after he was released in the Russian-controlled city of Donetsk without his papers. What we know on day 295 of the invasion. Russia shuts down any proposals for a Christmas ceasefire in Ukraine, and Kyiv hit in first major drone attack on capital in weeks.